Okay, good evening, everybody. Welcome to More Wild Talk, or another episode of More Wild Talk. We have a special guest with us tonight, Jeff Smith from DiscipleTrips, and we're going to get to him in a minute. But while we're waiting for everyone to get on and log in and make comments, which is normally just hi, I'm here.
That's it. Yeah,
Hi,
I found
I'm
you.
here. Yeah, we found you. Just a couple things about what's coming up this Sunday. First of all, Tracy, what's the lesson on this week?
Yeah, we are in our second lesson on our new series, The Whole Disciple. We're going to talk about character and what does that mean? What does it look like to be the character of Jesus? And so it should be really good as far as thinking about who we are to be in Christ.
And we started last week after we started adult class on 1 Peter that starts right after worship, and we introduced that last week, and we're not going to continue with it this week, but we're not canceling it.
No.
We've got a really special event planned for after worship this week. Martha White is going to turn 100 years old on Sunday, and she has been at home because of her health conditions. She hasn't been with us before the pandemic, and she is going to venture out and come here and be with us to celebrate her 100th birthday. So we want everyone to be there. We'll have a little special presentation and ceremony after worship, and she's really going to enjoy it, and you will too. So look forward to being here Sunday with us.
So who do we have here today?
All right, so Jeff is here from DiscipleTrips, and most of y'all are familiar with Jeff, but we want to kind of get into some more in-depth things to find out a little bit more about what's going on with DiscipleTrips. But maybe, I think a lot of times, and when you've been here before, we've kind of talked about, hey, what's upcoming with DiscipleTrips and where are you going? And obviously, one of the trips they take is to one of our old mission fields of Antigua. And we've sent several kids with you all on that trip, and so you kind of talk about that, but we don't really get the background, your background and your history. So let's kind of start there as far as your history with the church, and then kind of why we get the story of why you ended up where you are today. So I'm assuming you grew up in the church.
Yes. Yeah, I was blessed to be raised in the church. I don't know that I often wonder if I just grown up, without a Christian family, if I'd ever found the Lord. So I'm not sure I would have, but praise God, I didn't have to search. I had a good Christian home I was raised in.
Okay. Your dad was a preacher?
He became a preacher. He worked when I was a kid. He drove, he worked for Wonder Bread. So he drove one of those trucks.
Yeah.
And we would love it. Daddy's home, free Twinkies. So, but
I love Twinkies.
Yeah, but he decided he wanted to. There was a more important bread, the bread of life, and he felt a call to be a minister. So I was probably kindergarten when we moved to Lubbock, Texas. He went to a place called Sunset School of Preaching, kind of like a 2-year ministry training program.
Well, and this congregation is well familiar with Nat Cooper.
Yes,
and so we're well familiar with Nat and the work he does out there, but the work he did before he even got out there. We were supporters of his, so we have that connection also. So your dad is at Lubbock, and I think I've heard you say you ended up in Africa at some point in time.
Yeah, so it was always a dream of his to do mission work, and the first several ministries he had was preaching in local churches in Kansas, little places like that. But then the chance arose for him to be on a team to go to South Africa. And so we had some teammates, and we got a sponsoring church in Oklahoma City, and then had everything lined up. We even had our stuff on a crate. Our teammates got their visas, but South Africa decided no more missionaries. So instead, that church sent us to Wyoming. So we were doing stateside missions, working at smaller churches up there.
South Africa to Wyoming.
Yeah, well, so we didn't make it to South Africa then. We just went to Wyoming, but years later now, when we're teenage boys, I'm the oldest of 3 boys, and when we were at that age, another opportunity to Botswana, which is right above South Africa. It's about the landmass size of Texas, and semi-arid, similar climate. And so the church there at Sunset had missionaries and needed to replace one that was coming home. And my dad said, "Can I go?" And they said, "You'd be great, but your kids are too old. You You either start in the mission field when they're babies or you wait till they're grown and gone. And so they kind of nixed us for that. And we had a family meeting, and Dad said, "Hey, this is why we won't get to go." And we were like, "That's not fair. How can they judge us?" We knew our parents had tried to go years earlier, and we were excited back then in grade school. Now I'm in junior high school age, early high school actually. So he says, "Well, let's go down to Texas and you guys tell them how you boys feel about this. That you don't, you know." So we did. We drove from Wyoming down to Texas, met with the mission committee, and said, "Look, it's whether you think our parents are the right people or not. Don't discount them because of us. We would be happy to go with them. We know what this means to them." And so they reconsidered, and we wound up I moved to Botswana, Gaborone, Botswana, the capital city, when I was about 16 years old.
Wow.
And you were there for how long?
So I was there until my 18th birthday. I came home on my 18th birthday, but my parents and my brothers stayed until they graduated. I think my dad was there a total of 6 or 7 years.
Okay. And then your story picked up going back home, went to college?
So I was going to go to Lubbock Christian College, and I'm not sure if maybe it was LCU by then. I don't know. Anyway, but I wound up getting a better deal actually going to Texas Tech. Mm-hmm. But I also fell in love and got married at a young age. And
how young?
Oh, I was. Can we say that?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. You can. Yes.
It's not a felony in the state of Florida.
Yes. Yes.
We weren't that young. No, I don't want to mislead. But we were 18 years old when I asked her to marry me on New Year's Eve, and we waited until I turned 19 in March, and then on her 19th birthday, May 15th, is when we got married.
I think Bob and Sandy have y'all beat anyway.
Yeah. And we just celebrated 40 years of marriage. So
that's great.
Who said it wouldn't work?
Absolutely.
Just because you're kids, we raised each other, I guess.
Yeah. And Texas Tech is in Lubbock.
Yes, Texas Tech is.
So you were just still in Lubbock.
Still in Lubbock. So I wound up going eventually. I always knew I wanted to be a youth minister. Mm-hmm. I remember, like I said, when I was in Wyoming, the church was small. We didn't have youth ministers there. And so when I got to come back to Lubbock, so when the church did say, "Yeah, we'll send you to Africa, but you got to come back and spend a year with us and go through the School of Missions, get acquainted with our congregation." So during that year, I got to come spend my sophomore year in Lubbock and just be part of a big youth group. And I knew what that did to my life and how it blessed me. So God put that on my heart. I wanted to be a youth minister someday. So when I got married and I wound up going through the school preaching myself, and I graduated in 86. And my first youth ministry was in Phoenix, Arizona. And then I wound up 2 years later in Dewey, Oklahoma, near Bartlesville, and spent 6 years there. And then I got to come back to Sunset, to my that same congregation where I got to have a youth minister. And it was always my dream to get to be a youth minister at that church. For me, it'd be like not only getting to play in the NFL, but to choose your favorite team.
Yeah.
Which is, of course, the Dallas Cowboys.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. Sure. Well, if you're in Texas. Until the Texans showed up.
So getting to work at Sunset as a youth minister was kind of a dream for me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So why all of a sudden DiscipleTrips? I mean, what was it for you that said this needs to be done?
Well, it wasn't all of a sudden, and we are celebrating our 10th year of DiscipleTrips, but the dream goes way back before that when I was a youth minister in Oklahoma, and I wanted to take my kids on a mission trip. And the church there was a church about 200, not a huge church, and we had some missionaries, but they were like guys in India and places that weren't really, and we weren't the full sponsor of that church anyway, of that mission work. So, but I knew Mexico wasn't that far away. We could drive to Mexico, actually. And I noticed there was parachurch organizations in the denominational world, but I just wasn't comfortable with that. I wanted someone who understood who we were as Churches of Christ. And so, again, we're kind of autonomous, and so it's kind of hard to figure this out. So what I wound up doing was I knew some guys in Texas that were going to Mexico. I heard about this and met these guys at different youth ministers conferences. So I just kind of invited myself. I said, could we just tag along with you guys and go on a mission trip? And so they were gracious enough to let us do that. And that's how I got started taking my students. What I knew as a youth minister, I wanted my kids to have that similar like international experience that I had when I was in my formative years.
Right.
That God opened my eyes to the world. So that's what I wanted for my students, but it was hard. And I got to thinking, it shouldn't be this hard to take people on a mission trip, but truthfully it is. And so way back then I thought somebody could do this for us. Who could do this for Churches of Christ? And that was kind of, and I went to a mentor of mine and he thought it was a great idea, but he said, there's one problem. He said, your kids are too young. My children were kind of grade school at the time. And he said, you're going to have to travel a lot, be gone. And I just said, well, that's good for your family. And so he thought it was a great idea, but again, it just wasn't practical for us. And I didn't want to, he was right. I didn't need to abandon my children to go do a dream for God. I don't think God calls us to do that. So that kind of just sat on a shelf for years. And so about, I guess, probably 11, 12 years ago now, that old dream came back up, and now I have experience leading trips, a better idea of what I'm doing, some gray hair, made a lot of mistakes, but I got a lot of experience taking my kids. That first time we tagged along with a Texas church, and then we started being able to do our own. So anyways, the idea for DiscipleTrips came back up, and another mentor of mine said, hey, has anybody done that? And I said, I don't know. And he goes, well, your kids are grown and gone. You don't have that excuse anymore, right? I'm an empty nester at this point. So that's so there was kind of this long journey. I remember as a youth minister reading some books, and it's, the two most impactful things we do in youth ministry as far as programs are concerned are church camps. You go to church camp, and what can happen in a week at church camp is dynamic, and mission trips. And again, people from smaller churches can find a church camp somewhere, and parents can carpool. They can get their kids to some church camp within maybe a 4-hour drive, but they can get them somewhere and drop them off and come back. But who's going to lead a mission trip for these small churches?
Yeah,
right.
That's a little bit different animal.
Yeah. And when someone decides, hey, we want to join in with DiscipleTrips, do they just meet you over in that country? What has to happen?
Well, yeah, because that's a great question, because I think you do something a little bit different in that regard.
We do. I think it's really, the idea of going on a mission trip is great, but there's a lot to it, and you could actually you could do some things that really cause problems. And so we like to say DiscipleTrips is a do no harm kind of ministry, because like the Hippocratic Oath doctors take, right? We need to do that in missions too. We can have all these grand ideas, but if we're not careful, we can really make some mistakes and backfire. So we put together teams of individuals. You don't have to, you may be from a small church that doesn't offer any trips, and you hear about us and can join in one of ours. You may be 3 or 4 people from the same church. Anyways, it's like church camp, I would say mission camp in this case, right. And where we gather from all different places, even different states, to form one team. But again, truthfully, even though we're all brothers and sisters of Christ, typically, we're disciples going on a trip, but we don't really know each other. We've done some preparation, some online stuff, and maybe there's a little bit of getting to know some names, but this is the first time we're actually together. So the trip begins with what we call flight school. And flight school is, so we're all going to fly together. We're not going to meet in country. That's too late. We feel like it's important to do this on the state side of it. And so typically our trips leave out of some bigger destination like Dallas or Houston, and we'll all gather there. One of those local churches in those towns will host us for what we call flight school, and they'll even put us up for the night. We'll stay in the church building, and everyone gets there at 2:30, and then at 3 o'clock we start, and we do 3 things. The first and most important really is team building. We want to be a team. Again, we're just a bunch of strangers at this point. So we'll do some, I'll use some silly youth minister games and icebreakers, things like that, to get us kind of getting to know names and have fun doing it. We're laughing and all, but later we go deeper and we'll do some ropes course type stuff that make one of the games we play is called blind soccer. And we'll be in a room like this and just get a Nerf ball out, and we'll have them pair up with someone they don't know, and give them a blindfold. So one of them has a blindfold, they can't see, and it's their partner that's got to speak to them and tell them where to go. So it's kind of a trust kind of thing,
Right.
And it's a little scary.
Mm-hmm.
And going on a mission trip can feel scary at times, right? So we want to kind of recreate that and then process it. So we'll do things like that, and it's just chaos because everyone's screaming at their partner. You can't touch them. You can only speak to them. So you got to be close enough. I can't just guide you by the hand. That'd be easy, too easy. We want you to learn how to listen. So we'll debrief this. We'll talk about the importance of listening and hearing the right voice. And if not, you could run into a wall and get hurt. And having to concentrate and deal with fear. So we'll talk about dealing with our fears. What is it that scares you about going on a mission trip? So we'll debrief all that. And so in the early part, we're laughing together, and then later on, we're talking about what scares us. And before you know it, someone really opens up and shares a story. Like we had this one family that actually lost their daughter. She died before graduation and in her sleep one night. And they kind of came on this trip to Antigua, and I think it was kind of a memorial trip for them. It was a way of just honoring their daughter because she would have loved to go on a trip like this. And so they were kind of, I think, processing even some of their grief even then a few years later. And beautiful family, the Wiest family. And so they opened up. They started sharing their pain. And man, we're all just bawling together, But it's amazing when people do that, then someone else opens up. And before you know it, again, the Holy Spirit just bonds us as this team. And so before we're done that night, we really are a team. And so we go to the airport knowing each other instead of trying to go, oh, hi, I'm Jeff. I'm on the same mission trip we're in country. That's too late. So I think the secret sauce is flight school. The other two things we do in flight school besides that team building is we then do like mission specific training. So we'll cover topics, and it is fast and furious, but we'll talk about cultural sensitivity. You're going to be in another culture, and you can, again, just kind of being ready for some things that are maybe different. We'll talk about health and safety and not getting sick. We don't have time to get sick. I always joke and say, it's really not a joke. I said, we don't have a lot of rules at DiscipleTrips, but here's an important one. You're not allowed to die or get sick on a trip. We don't have time for that.
Can't have any.
No, we can't have that. We don't. And so we are serious about keeping people safe, and that's so important. People trust their sons and daughters and their family members to us, and so that's sacred, really. And that's the thing that keeps me up at night at times. But we press on, and God has blessed us and kept us protected on these trips. So we'll talk about health and safety, cultural sensitivity, even poverty. There's some, we're going to see some extreme poverty in these places. And again, there you can do more harm than good by just, giving somebody some money.
Yeah.
And we'll take a deeper look at poverty, because poverty isn't just about money. It can be like poverty in spirit, because these people have such low resources. Maybe they have a low self-esteem too. And how sometimes we just perpetuate that as the Americans coming in with the almighty dollar.
Right.
And like we're the heroes and you're the beggars. And that's not healthy. We don't want to do that. So we talk about things like that. The last thing we do toward the end of the night is we'll spend some time in any kind of mission-specific training for that trip. Each disciple trip is different. Like we don't have this cookie-cutter approach. We really try to partner with these congregations and mission efforts domestically or internationally and ask, what do you need? What could a group of people do for a week that would really bless your work and you guys could follow up on it? So we really try to tailor it to the gifts of the team and the needs of that place. So sometimes we'll do a VBS, and while assignments have been given out months in advance, who's going to be a teacher or a group leader or crafts, all the stuff you do. But we've never been together as a team. And so we'll kind of go over the last minute assignments and make sure that everybody knows kind of their role. One of the things we love to do is also called a sermon and song. And it's like a 25-minute gospel presentation using, hymns, and there's some scripture readings along the way, and we'll develop different themes.
Mm-hmm.
And so we have one called Faith, Hope, and Love, and we'll sing songs about that and scriptures about that. Another one we have that we love to do in Antigua is called Tell Me the Story of Jesus. So we kind of use that song as a thread, and then we kind of go through the life of Christ, singing Christmas songs, about his birth, joy to the world. We'll start with that one in July in Antigua or something like that. Right. It's fun, but then we'll talk about his life and ministry, and then his death and resurrection, and kind of just go through his story with hymns. And it's kind of a neat outreach we can do. And so we'll kind of go over some of those kind of things. And then that night we go to bed, and then the church the next morning takes us in their people mover or whatever to the airport. We can just leave our cars at their church building, and they'll pick us up at the end of the week. And so it allows other churches to partner with us too, be part of this. So I think flight school is a secret sauce that gets us ready to go then that week and have an amazing experience.
And this has kind of evolved, I'm assuming, over the 10-year period as
Yes.
far as honing it and perfecting it.
Oh,
and
absolutely.
doing that. So how many trips did you start out doing, and, where are we at now as far as that's concerned?
So, again, I was a full-time campus minister, college minister at the time when this dream came back. And so we had, it was, my elders allowed me to incubate this kind of on the side, because in campus ministry, this summer is the slow time, although everyone goes back home. And so I had one trip to Honduras, and we took 7 people. So that was great. The next year, we tried to have 2 trips. One of them fell through. And so we had just one more trip, but this time we had doubled it to 15 people. Okay, 14, 15, somewhere in there. But it was doubled, basically. The third trip, we went back to Honduras and Antigua. So Antigua was our second offering at that point. And it went and then it tripled. We had 45 people go in the third year on 2 trips. At that point, that's all I could do. I realized I'd already hit a ceiling, leading this by myself and having, I was almost out of gas in the summer. It's time to recharge for the fall when all the new college kids come to town. And so I realized, Lord, this is great. We can just do 2 trips a year, 45 people, or it could be more. And so I had to really start thinking about what this means. And I'd been at that church for nearly 20 years at this point. But I decided that God was calling us to do this full time, that this could really be something that could bless our brotherhood. And so that's what we did. I let go of my salary and raised money. And, we say faith taking flight, it's kind of our byline. And that's the idea of really not to get on a plane. I mean, that's we kind of play off of that, but really it's more about our faith is taking flight. These mission trips help us grow. We want to see kingdom growth and in the individual and these churches we could bless and in the churches back home at the end, that these folks come back excited. We like to say our vision is kind of real simple. It's like taking help and hope, and we go to these places, we want to offer whatever help we can in different ways, helping them do a children's program or repairs at people's home or outreach and gospel meetings, door knocking, whatever it is. We offer this help, which includes the hope, about Jesus and sharing that good news and just letting the people know you're not by yourselves. I think a lot of times missionaries or people, doing works, just feel isolated in places like this. And it's such an encouragement to have a team come for a week and just a shot in the arm. But we want to so we take help and hope, but we want to return with something, not just souvenirs or Montezuma's revenge.
Right.
We want to return with passion and purpose. And so we do that. It's just, again, these trips just light us on fire.
And we've seen that here. I mean, with the folks who have come back.
Absolutely.
With just great stories and passion.
And we hope that translates and just kind of moves on into, again, their mission field in their own backyard.
Right.
So yeah, it's
Yeah.
Well, we're kind of winding down, I think.
Yeah, we got a couple of minutes
So
left.
why don't you tell folks, okay, I want to learn more about this. I want to see, first of all, there's no age limit.
exactly. When we started out, I was targeting young people because I do think it's important to reach them in the formative years. But then I realized, and Titus 2, it says the older should be teaching the younger, and how can we do that if we're never together? And what I found that was the beauty is that some of us didn't get to do mission trips. No one was doing that for us. So all generations love this. So we're intergenerational.
So I want to find out more about it. I'm going to get on your website.
Yes.
And I can find out prices and
Absolutely.
places and those kind of things.
Yeah, so our website's DiscipleTrips, the 2 words together, disciple and trips.com.
That's simple.
It's real simple. And
Well,
it's a great place to find us. And yeah, you can see some videos. You can see who our trip guides are and just the different trips we offer at different times and where they originate out of.
Yeah.
And
you need funds. You need people to give you money.
well, yes.
yes.
I mean, we don't need to be bashful about saying, yeah, here's how we're supported and here's how we get better.
Right.
And so if the vision of having a group like this that can, organize a trip that's more church of our the way we think.
Understands us.
Yeah, that understands us, our folks, and supports the churches that we support.
Yes.
By, like Antigua, we were sending them money, but it's, you need to send people too.
Yes.
As far as that's concerned, so there's always an opportunity to give.
Absolutely. We there's two of us working at full time now. It's grown to that point. Darren Bible is my director of operations now, and he's really latched on. That's freeing me up to get out and share the vision with other people and develop it. But there's other things. I have big dreams, a lot of other things I want to add, other layers to this. But yeah, it takes money. And so, yeah, for the support, for some of that stuff, we try not to pass the cost on to the people that go. We want to make these trips as affordable as possible. We don't want money to be a reason people can't go. We also want to create a scholarship fund for that very reason, to help jumpstart. We believe people need to learn how to raise money, but it sometimes it seems so overwhelming at first when it costs $1,600 for a trip maybe, and so you're like, if there were some people that can't go but would want to send, and we can help those go and just again ignite their faith, it's just a great investment in the kingdom.
Well, you've done a great job with that. I know my wife, she came home last night and her and my daughter were saying we're going on a trip. So
That's great. Praise God.
They you've inspired our folks. You've inspired a lot of people, and we appreciate you coming on here with us. And we just going to continue to pray and for you and can't wait to see what's happening in the future. Now you got me really curious when you talk about adding on some of this stuff, but thanks for being with us.
Yeah.
And thank you for joining us tonight. I think you've probably been as blessed as Joe and I have, being able to sit here with Jeff, and hopefully we'll see you next week. Thanks for tuning in.
See ya.